My name is Coni Sanders, and my dad was the teacher killed at Columbine. On April 20th, 1999, I was at work when I overheard a coworker say something about stupid kids at Columbine. And I joked with them and said, "Don't talk like that. My dad is a teacher there," and I watched everybody turn white. And it was at that moment that my life changed forever. So this woman at my office drove me to my mom's, which is right by Columbine High School, and there were helicopters, and it was almost like a post-apocalyptic thing. Like there were cars parked right in the middle of the street with people standing in the median, and helicopters and police cars and people walking across Wadsworth. It was very, very strange. So she dropped me off, and I'll never forget, I walked into the house, and Dad had bought this new big screen TV to watch the Rockies games on. And everybody in the living room was on their knees in front of this big screen TV, watching the news footage of people running out of the school and yelling like, "Oh, was that him? Is that him? Is that him?" And seeing the kids running out of the school with their shirts off. And we couldn't figure out, we found out later, it's because they had taken their shirts off to try to stop his bleeding. And then there was a scene of a helicopter, well, it was from the helicopter zooming in on a sign that said "One bleeding to death." And my mother just started sobbing, and she said, "Oh my God, they've got to get to that student." It was my dad. That sign was because of him. He was right there, right above the exit, in a room bleeding to death with 40 students. My dad saved hundreds of kids. He was outside and he saw what was happening and ran into the cafeteria and jumped up on the tables and told everybody to get down and move out. And then he ran up the stairs towards the library, I'm guessing to try to tell more kids to run and hide, and he was shot right outside of the library. We were normal, and within a millisecond, we were on the front page of the paper in Japan, and we couldn't get out of our house because there were so many cameras in front of the door, and pictures, our family photos were stolen off the walls. People had come in to do interviews and take the pictures with us or with them, and we couldn't go anywhere without people knowing who we were. We used different names, we shopped at different stores, because we just didn't want to have to relive that very moment at any given time. And throughout the years, people come up and say, "Oh my gosh, I remember where I was that day. And I was here and this was happening, and I know somebody else," and what they don't realize is they're asking us to relive the worst day of our life as well. What I know now is healing is so strange. Like there can be a moment where you're standing in line at the grocery store and you feel totally okay, and you look over and Time magazine has a picture of the boys that murdered your family member. It wasn't until 7 years after that I needed therapy. Okay, maybe I needed therapy before then. I didn't think I needed it because I didn't feel anything. That was the problem. When we experience a significant trauma, it breaks us, and suddenly we don't really feel anything. I was driving on the highway, and all of a sudden I just felt this, I can't even describe it, like this intense sadness, anger. It was like this explosion, and I still don't know what happened. If it was a song on the radio or what, and I pulled over on the side of C-470 and got out of my car and sat in the ditch. And I laid down and I was looking at the sky. I don't know what happened. I felt, I broke. And I don't even think that I knew if it was about Columbine. And then it was like something snapped and I went, "You're in a ditch on the side of the highway. Get back in your car. How are you going to explain this to people?" And so I got back into my car and I drove home and I just sat in the driveway. And I just felt, it was like I felt everything over 7 years in one moment. It felt unfair, it was angry, it was sad, it was disgusted at our entire world. And at that point, I had to go to therapy. And I felt stupid. I felt stupid because it felt good. And why did I wait so long? I was really angry with myself because I really thought that I didn't need it. Because in our society, everybody says, be strong. No, be weak. Go get help. And I, to this day, feel really bad for my kids because I was so focused on my own grieving. I was so focused on my own journey that I feel like I left theirs out. One of my daughters was 9 months old when it happened, and she gets sad because she doesn't remember Grandpa, and she hears all of these amazing stories about how great he was, and she didn't get that. And people don't give her the passage of grief that everybody else gets because she was just a baby. My other daughter really struggled. She loved Grandpa. At one point, she was really struggling herself, and in her closet, we found a shrine to Grandpa. She had been struggling for years and didn't say anything, and I realized it's because she was trying to be strong. Doesn't bother Mom, why should it bother me? She didn't know that I was in therapy. She didn't know how my heart was broken because I was trying to be strong for my kids. And I can tell you the one thing that parents can do, be weak. Be weak in front of your kids. Let them know that it's okay to break, that it's okay to need therapy, that it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to seek support, because if you don't, they don't. I felt disconnected from the girls for a good portion of their childhood because I was so distracted by this horrific thing that happened to our family at Columbine. And now I look back and I realize there weren't a lot of times that I thought about their experience, that even until this filming, I never thought to ask what it was like for them. My dad always wanted me to go to college, right after high school, and I didn't do that because I thought I knew everything. So after he died, I thought, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I started taking college classes, and I was going to be a business major until I took an abnormal psychology class. In that class, I started thinking about the two boys that murdered Dad, and I thought, I wonder what happened to them. How did they get to that point? Found out the two boys were on diversion in Jefferson County for breaking into a van. Mm-hmm. And they actually had to receive treatment. And I'm now that treatment provider that provides treatment for that diversion program. I am co-owner of a private practice, a mental health practice, and we are forensic therapists working with people involved in the criminal justice system and trying to reintegrate back into society. I could not believe how many people have committed violent acts that want to be reformed, they want to do differently. They're not career criminals. A lot of them are no different than you and I. Every level of socioeconomic status, racial, there is no one type of person that commits violent acts. And it has been so encouraging and so amazing. I had no idea that I would end up where I am now. And I have a hard time explaining to people, why I do this. A lot of people don't understand how I can have compassion and empathy for people that have maybe killed somebody, harmed somebody, because I've been on both sides of that. But I think that's what makes it even more powerful, is to be able to tell somebody, that it's going to be okay and that they have an opportunity to reemerge in society and be kind and be empathetic. And that's really hard for people to understand. For me, I really had to focus on how do I stop this? And I was like, it's got to be the parenting. It's got to be the guns. It's got to be video games. It's got to be something. And it turns out it's not something. It's everything. We have to focus on everything. We have to put energy towards parenting. We have to put energy towards guns. We have to put energy towards mental health. We have to put energy towards changing our culture about how we treat people and how we love people and how we support people. Because the boys committed suicide, we had nobody to focus that anger on. So we focused the anger on the people that bought the guns. We focused the anger on the parents of the boys. And we had to have something to focus on, because otherwise that grief and that anger felt out of control. And then my own children became teenagers, and I'm a good mom, and I tried really hard, and they weren't doing anything threatening or violent, but I was struggling with them, and I thought, well, maybe it isn't the parenting. I mean, maybe you can do everything to the best of your ability and your child could still struggle. And my heart just ached, because I thought, my goodness, it was at that moment when I thought, if one of my girls went out and did something like that, I don't think I could survive that. And when I started looking into what Sue Klebold had been doing with her time since Columbine, she had dedicated her time to suicide prevention, and I thought, we've been doing the same thing in the same world for the same reason. We both wanted to prevent our loved one from dying. And so it was almost as if we both, on these opposite planes, had been working so hard, desperately, to save people from going down the path that we went on. And then we got to meet. I had placed myself mentally in what it was like to be the parent of a child that murdered people. And it was almost as if my heart was aching for her. So I go to meet with her, and it was the most powerful experience I think I've ever had, because she is such a kind, generous, soothing person. And at the end of it, she said, I don't know how to say this or if it's even right, but I really care about you. And I felt the same way. And so we've been meeting about once a month ever since then, just spending time talking about the community. And she works a lot with the suicide prevention, and I work with violence prevention in general. And we have a mission, but we don't know what that mission is yet. 20 years later, he missed everything. He wasn't here for weddings, births of babies, Christmases, the Rockies, the Broncos. He loved sports. And every time there's an event, we think, I wonder what he would have thought. And 20 years later, it's so hard to believe that it's been almost 20 years, but time is going to go by no matter what. And you get to decide what you do with it. And for people that are new to this journey, I want them to know you can survive. Like, we have made it through, and it's been ugly at times, but I think the number one thing that people need to know is you'll get through. We don't know what that looks like. It's a really scary, scary, scary journey, but sadly, they're not alone. This club that nobody wanted to join, the one where the only ticket you have to get in is a dead family member. Nobody wants to be in this club. But once you're in it, you're not alone.